The Belgian GP was supposed to be a manifestation of greatness in the rain, but it turned into a snoozefest because of the teams being tricked into implementing rain-conditioned setups on their cars for a dry race. The race directors and the governing body are receiving tons of backlash for their actions in Spa. But at the end of the day, bigger questions need to be answered. What comes after this? And is there any opportunity that we're going to see enlarged usage of the wet tires? What seemed to be a rain-affected race, which is usual for Spa, has really shattered the dreams of 390,000 people that went to the circuit and many millions more watching from home. The torrential rain that started about an hour before the race continued in a similar fashion, leading to the drivers having the formation lap behind the safety car. Nobody blames the FIA for this. It's a standard procedure to see whether the track is safe enough for driving. But here was the first mistake. On a soaked circuit, everyone was with intermediate tires. The amount of trust and usage that the teams have in the blue stripe tires is pretty much equal to zero. And it's the fundamental reason why there's a problem whenever the rain starts to make a little bit more of a challenge to tackle from both the race director and the drivers. Then a decision was made. The start of the race was delayed. There was a big cloud of rain that was supposed to pass by 4 o'clock local time, and an additional 20 minutes were needed for the race to dry up even more. 4 laps were driven behind the safety car, and apart from the overtake from Piastri during the restart and the masterclass that Hamilton pulled off, I don't think we've seen that many enjoyable racing moments at all. And I do blame the guidelines that the FIA gave the teams before the race. Even though we had a dry weekend prior to the Sunday event, it was always known that the rain was going to be a big factor for the main race. Yep, it was good that the race didn't begin the 3-hour countdown time after the formation lap, because technically the race wasn't started at that point. But everything that came after that was just a disaster class from the race directors. You knew it was going to rain. The entire grid knew it was going to rain. So, what was the problem? If you as a team principal know that you are going to set up the car for a rain-afflicted race, bigger rear wings and more downforce. However, that was precisely what ruined the racing that we were supposed to see, primarily from Max Verstappen. His race engineer admitted that if they knew things were going to develop in the way they did, it's definitely not the direction they would have taken with the rear wing. And this is definitely the root of the issue that needs to be addressed very soon. Max Verstappen is the one who spoke about this in a broader aspect when addressing the delay of the start. The 4-time world champion said, "Well, the start procedure being suspended is a bit silly. I mean, you should just run a few laps. Jesus, they are way too cautious now. The heavy rain is coming, and then it's going to be a 3-hour delay." The FIA didn't do a bad job by suspending the race in the beginning. It needed to be done because there was a considerable amount of water on the circuit. However, once it stopped raining, with the wet blue striped tires, I believe racing was more than possible. I do understand the decision from a safety point of view. We lost 2 young lives in 2019 and 2023 with Hubert and Van T. Hoff, respectively. But the drivers know better than anyone else out there what they're going to deal with once they step into the car. We've seen what happened last year in Interlagos, and we've seen that because of the changing conditions in this same place in 2008, Hamilton won his first title. Rain used to be the main thing we cheered for when a weekend was approaching. But from now on, I don't think the fans nor the drivers will be happy to see it on the forecast. And that is why you need to ask yourself the big question: what are the FIA's actions doing to the sport? Are they actually hurting racing by trying to overprotect the nature of the wet circuits? There is a silver lining between racing on the edge and putting the drivers out there to survive in the horrible conditions that the rain created. However, it's the same rain that built confidence in drivers like Verstappen, Hamilton, Schumacher, and Senna to become what they became in their racing careers. In 2025 Spa situation, I think it was an easy decision to put the drivers out there on the tires for the wet conditions and see whether the spray caused by the cars ahead would be too big to drive behind. Yep, they would all be much slower. But at the end of the day, slow racing is far, far greater than no racing at all. And I think that the vision was impaired because of the usage of the tires. All 20 drivers put on the intermediate tires to drive behind the safety car's formation lap when they knew what conditions were waiting for them out there. It shows a very worrying trend that needs to change soon. The FIA needs to do something about the blue striped tire. It needs to be used more because Spa is a track on which rain is constantly present. And when it's like that, you just can't rely on the intermediate tires solely. The name says it all. The conditions need to be mixed for the green tire to make any sense. When everything is soaked, why not mount the wet tire and see who is a good driver in the rain and who's a bad one? Of course, with all of the other dangerous factors limited. If the visibility is still poor and the drivers complain of it, then we'd be having another talk. Nobody is forcing the FIA to endanger the lives of the competitors just for the sake of the show. But make no mistake, with decisions like the ones that were brought in Spa, the ratings of the sport will continue to drop. And another far more worrying factor has arisen from this entire situation.